Y'all, today we are going all the way back to the recesses of Jodi Hildebrandt's mind by going to her very first podcast on connections, her website, her therapy stuff, her nightmare, if you will. So buckle up, because you're going to need it today. Hello, the Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. There's still just a chair back there, and there's still just a Paul right here. My name's Paul if you're new to the channel. If you're not new to the channel, well, my name's still Paul. So what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be revisiting Jodi Hildebrandt Connections podcast. Now, I went back to the very first one. I was like, let's just start from the very beginning, okay? I want you to listen to this as we listen to it with the word hypocrisy and irony in mind, okay? Because it's literally 2 healthy doses of that, right? Now, if you are unfamiliar with this case, Jodi Hildebrandt is currently in prison. She actually is asking to get out and trying to appeal. She is in prison because she and her co-defendant, Ruby Franke, former host and head of 8 Passengers family vlogging channel, did horrifying things to Ruby's children. Jodi did horrifying things to other people. Jodi was a very sought after, highly recommended by the church therapist, okay? So Connections is like this thing that she started where it's like, helping people. You'll hear it in a second. So they did podcasts on this, hundreds of episodes, right? So this is like way before Ruby got involved with it. So I wanted to go back to the very beginning and just start from there and just kind of go through it. I picked several clips out of the first episode and I'm just going to use those as talking points. So we'll listen to it and we'll talk about it along the way. So let's just go ahead and dive on in.
We so thank you for joining us at Connections Podcast. We, as educators of human connection, invite and encourage healing and facilitate personal growth through impeccable honesty, rigorous personal responsibility, and vulnerable humility.
Do I even need to say anything? Honestly, do I need to say anything? If you follow the case, that's where we're starting off at. And I'm sorry, but that beginning part just gets me going. Okay, let's keep going.
Hello. It is so good to spend some time with you today. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about the power of choice and the outcomes that follow choice. That movement of choice and outcome.
I wonder if she's willing to take her own advice with this little appeal she's trying to write, because as she just said, choice and outcome. So let's just say what Miss Jodi has to say about the choice, about the outcome.
So the other day, I was sitting in a meeting, and in front of me was a family. And as I sat there in this meeting, it was like an hour and a half long, this meeting. And I sat in back of this family and watched these 2 little children playing and interacting with what I'd call their environment. So they were, running back and forth between mom and dad, and they were patting their parents' cheeks, and mom and dad were giving them food, like, little handfuls of cereal and just some finger food. And they were, slapping it on the chairs, and they were just giddy and gay about being in their environment, just playing and interacting. And they were in the process of making choices and having outcomes. So I noticed the parents at times, teach or educate or school their children as they were running back and forth and jumping up and down and sitting on the ground and then laying on the ground and having their cheek on the floor, and they were just thrilled and enamored with their little environments.
I'm just waiting for her to say, and I crushed it. In my opinion, and again, I forgot to say this, but I ain't no doctor, ain't no lawyer, ain't no cop, ain't no therapist, ain't none of that fancy credentialed stuff. Okay, only credentials I got is the sofa, which is actually a chair, and my sass. Okay, so these are just my opinions on very public information. I personally think Jodi hates kids, okay? I think she hates children. I think she hates life itself. I think she hates happiness, and she's like, happiness, kill it, burn it with fire, right? I just think that that's who she is. So she's describing the scene of like kids being kids. Well, she probably wanted to destroy this up on sight, okay? Let's keep going.
And I sat there and I thought, they are so free. Just watch them. And there was nothing that was hindering them. They didn't have any distortion as they were playing. And I thought about how connected they were. So then I thought, what needs to happen? What do they need to remain connected? Like, what do they need?
They need punishment. This is where it's headed, right? Lots of 10-cent Jodi words. Connected, distortion, you name it. And again, this is eating her up. Seeing people being happy, kids being kids, we just cannot have that.
So I thought, what do we need to do? What do children need to learn or be taught or understand or ultimately choose to be connected, So children are the most connected beings around us. The younger the child, the more connected, the more healthy, the more free. Now, granted, they're less aware. And in that lack of awareness, there are less choices for them to make, and therefore less consequences.
Doesn't she sound very Grey Poupon when she speaks? I don't know if this is how she talks normally, but it's really turned up in this thing where she's trying very hard to sound very educated. They have limited choices because they are just mere children. She kind of sounds like in Hocus Pocus. Remember how she kind of talks about ooh, children? Literally, it's what she's giving, okay?
However, what can we teach them so that they can stay connected or ultimately, like I said, choose to be connected? Because the older that they become, the more choices that they're going to have. The more mature that they become, the more choices they're going to have. And so it's not just a matter of being connected. They're going to have to choose to be connected. And so what are the foundational principles of connection?
If she has not touted the name of this thing, connection, connected, connections, my gosh. The basis of what she talks about can be true of okay, you get older, you have more choices. How do we deal with this? How do we do this? Right? We get this, okay? However, it's clear that it took quite the wrong direction.
Well, I've talked about this a lot. And let me say it again. The foundational principles of connection are being honest, responsible, and humble. Connection is an outcome of choosing principles of truth. And truth is learning to be honest, responsible, and humble.
Now remember this right here, honest, responsible, humble. Now remember, she's over here talking about, I didn't get a fair trial, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. At her sentencing, she was like, I don't want to go and do the trial because I want the kids to be happy. And now she's talking about, well, I would have done that. So again, you see how far back this goes with these teaching, this hypocrisy that she does.
Truth also includes understanding the facts, so being honest about the facts and being truthful about the facts and being responsible for the facts.
A lot of stuff around truthfulness and facts, two of which she, in my opinion, has no concept of.
So for children, they don't understand that. They just have a limited view of their world, and therefore their choices are quite restricted. And as they grow and they're able to move around more fluently in the world and take on more responsibility, with that responsibility comes the power of making more choices.
She's so big on this. And again, what I think is interesting is how much choice she took away from children in her lifetime, right? She would present it as this whole thing, and she even did it to adults and stuff. But by her manipulation and coercion, she would take this away from the manipulation. She would pivot you into you don't have a choice, right? All while marketing and selling this whole thing of you have to prepare them to be able to make these smart choices. But again, it's all influenced by what she's trying to teach you to make them do. Which I get. People want their kids to grow up in the way that, I want to put my morals, my values, my this or that. But there's also a certain level where you have to put the things that you think make a good person into play and let that person become their own person. And I feel like Jodi and Ruby and this whole, level of just torture that they did, clearly that wasn't right. But they took that ability away. They took choice away under the guise of giving choice, right? It's kind of confusing.
Each child, each person must be taught that they are responsible for their experiences in life and how they experience them, / how they perceive them, how they're going to either choose truth or distortion about those experiences.
Now, again, if you follow this, you already know truth and distortion, major keywords. I'm talking, these are our favorite words in this world, right? And again, I would argue that Jodi, by her definition, lives in distortion. I mean, this is like, as we get deeper into this, you're going to hear, and like what we know of the case so far, and it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, I would argue at this point, we already know her family doesn't talk to her. She has decimated people's lives by going and manipulating, things around them if she didn't get what she wanted out of them or whatever, okay? So to me, it's almost like she constantly lived in distortion per her definition, but also, this is just a classic case of projection. It's almost like what she is telling you of others, she is doing herself.
So we are dependent beings, learning how to become interdependent beings. So let me describe what dependency is. And again, that's not just for children. There are plenty of adults who are very dependent on, their friend liking them, or they're going to fall apart and not feel like they're loved or wanted, or dependent on their spouse telling them that they're enough or good or beautiful or desirable. And if that doesn't happen, they feel unworthy and unloved.
Now, this is what I'm talking about right here. I think she's completely guilty of this, right? Her own family, basically was like, we can't handle you anymore. You're just whatever. I don't know the personal story behind it. But then also, the way that she would manipulate. So just look at what she did with Ruby, right? The whole thing of the devil's got a hold of me, girl. I'm going to need to move into your house, maybe into your bed. She would see things that she wanted, but I don't think that she has the social skills enough to accomplish these intricate relationships and maintain them. So she has to do it through coercion and through evil. I think also at the basis of her is it's almost like she believes that she is literally the next coming. So in her world, that's where she's coming at it from. She is biblical, right? She's doing you a favor to be in your world.
So trust is a fragile entity, and it can be destroyed with one act of selfishness, one act of being irresponsible or dishonest, depending on the egregiousness of the act.
Now again, this whole thing about truth, I just think that she's projecting. Whatever it is that she's done to make her own family not talk to her, there you go. Her sitting here saying that, I just think of the kids, specifically the most recent, what Ruby's kids at her house. And I'm like, well, what do you think these kids thought? You're torturing them. There's what kind of trust is that? But I also think in these lessons, and again, who knows how deep, gone she was with them here. I also think these lessons are I don't know what you call it, the reverse, the Uno card of them or whatever. Again, the projection, whatever. It's just she's sitting here saying these things that she's not willing to do, but that also she probably feels have been done to her in some fashion. So it's almost like when she's sitting here talking about trust, in her world, even though she would never be able to see, oh, I've not done things to gain trust and I've broken that, it's almost like she has a target audience that she's really talking to, I know so-and-so's listening to this and they did this and I'm gonna package it up in a lesson.
In this place of when you do make a mistake, because you will, or you do act selfish because you will, you humbly acknowledge that in the spirit of being honest and responsible, and you clean that up.
Again, do I even need to say anything? Okay, the constant humble talk coming from one of the least humble human beings there is. All the way down to, when she was doing her little speech at the sentencing and stuff. You could just tell, and again, it's just my opinion, that there was this level of just, I'm not guilty, but I'm going to say I am. And she did the bare minimum. her lawyer had to say, yeah, Judge, I want to let you know that she's sincere. Come on, right now she's saying that the lawyer was ineffective.
So how do we teach people, little people, big people, how to be honest, responsible, and humble? Well, here are some characteristics that they or we must understand about life and what we're responsible for, and also what we're not responsible for. That's important because we can at times take on things that are actually not ours to be responsible for. And that would translate into being controlling. That's where control comes in. It's when I start putting my hands, literally, figuratively, on something or someone that I don't have any responsibility for.
Again, this didn't age well, did it? The psychologically fascinating part, if you take away, just put the tragedy aside for a moment, just look at it from, say, a psychological standpoint, is the disconnect. Right now, I get this was filmed, I think in like 2022 or something like that. I can't remember the exact date, but I mean, it was several years ago. Nonetheless, in this window of time. And who knows what she had done at this point. We know she had victimized like grown adults and stuff like this at this point, right? But it's that disconnect. It's her entitledness that she honestly thinks the things that she was doing, that were literally tormenting and destroying people, were done in like the name of whatever, right? And let me tell you what, these classes she's selling, yeah, they ain't cheap. You saw her house. Even if you don't like the style, I mean, she cashed in on this grift, right? I mean, the church highly recommended her, and it wasn't even really, correct me if I'm wrong, credentialed properly enough to be doing this. Literally, she had her game on lock, and she could just do whatever she wanted to. And this is the thing, when you get to the situations like people like her in, and you can let whatever's inside of you out, that's when your true colors show. Well, what we've seen of her, I think, are her true colors.
Okay, so the 4 principles are the principle or characteristic of choice, the principle of outcome, the principle of experience, and then the principles of truth and distortion.
10 cents, go ahead and just fill the jar up. Okay, we cashed in our little 10 cents worth right on that right there.
Now, the outcome and the consequence are not a punishment. Rather, they're there to teach. Outcomes and consequences are there as a guide to learn what is specifically in truth and what is in distortion. You have the opportunity to choose and experience. What a gift.
What a gift. So you heard the thing about outcomes of whatever aren't a punishment, like a learning lesson, whatever. But look at the way she and Ruby turned them into punishments. Now, granted, in their world, they're going to sit here and be like, the fact that we're going to make the kids go out in 120-degree weather and stand in the sunlight for 8 hours, that's not punishment. That's like, I'm inviting them to learn. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But it's all packaged up in abuse, right? And that's just one of the many things that they did. I mean, the crazy stuff they were doing to these kids, starving them, hot sauce and wounds. And that's where, now mind you, the kids they thought were devils or, possessed, right? I mean, this was like the 100% were just like the kids are possessed, okay? But regardless, the constant coming at them in this way. But again, turn those tables, they don't like that being done to them. And that's usually how that goes. Yeah, when you see people like this who are tormenting and doing that kind of stuff, well, I mean, nobody wants that done to them, right? Even the people who are perpetuating it, they don't want that done to them, but they don't mind doing it to others.
I'm sorry, it's not choice, it's experience. And then you choose to perceive. So right there, as experience presents, you project you onto experience through choice. You choose to perceive. You choose to place meaning onto this experience. And your meaning is either going to be in truth or distortion. It's that simple. You're either going to be in truth or distortion.
I mean, you almost need a diagram as you go. Like, if you were literally listening to this, like, honey, I found this new podcast. A lot of the ladies at the church are talking about it. Really helped them out. You know what I mean? I would have to sit here, like, literally with, like, a piece of paper and be like, truth to distortion, punishment lesson, back to truth, over to distortion. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, dude. But I think she also thinks that she sounds super smart, where she's just like, yes, Ruby, in our little handbook, now that you're part of the Connections podcast, you are required to use the word distortion every 6 words, or else you will sound completely ignorant.
You need to understand truth in order to understand distortion. So truth is about honest, responsible, humble. It's about being free. It's about things that are everlasting and eternal. And it's about the facts. Distortion is about captivity. It's about dishonesty, irresponsibility, an unwillingness to be vulnerable. It's about being enslaved. It's about being unconscious and disconnected.
I mean, honestly, so again, my non-professional opinion, she just described her and Ruby with the distortion part. Here's the other thing too. The whole thing, every time I saw her, it's like they were trying to give these kids like the option of being in truth. They were never able to obtain it. It was an unobtainable goal, right? Because I think the kids had to be, in Ruby and Jodi's mind, the kids had to always be in distortion because that gave their life definition, right? If the kids were all right, as they say, they had nothing there. And I just feel like too, the kids became a focal point of where, you know, not only like we're essentially making content now off the torture of them, because I know they weren't doing it on TV, but like the learning lessons and that kind of a thing or whatever. And then too, they thought that they were possessed by, you know, demons and whatnot. So it just became this like self-fulfilling cycle or whatever. But that's where I'm just like, yeah, but you always move the goalposts. They were never going to get there. You were always just going to keep torturing them.
If you don't critique yourself, then you'll just assume everything that you think is in truth, even if it's in distortion, and you'll begin to believe that you're always right and that your perception is the reality.
Slam the gavel down. Case damn closed. Don't let her out of prison. That right there, put that audio clip over this whole case. That is what I'm talking about. She has literally just described her and Ruby. Probably countless others that we walk amongst, but you know what I'm saying. Especially this, I mean, this is exactly what she's doing. And it absolutely infuriates me.
As you more gradually and slowly move away from truth, you become insensitive to what truth feels like, what it sounds like, what it acts like, and you will begin to view distortion as truth.
Again, slam the gavel, case damn closed, guilty. I mean, it's just, this is what's so frustrating. This is why it's like hypocrisy and irony is where this is just, this whole episode is. And again, this is like the first one. So, you know, as she got more drunk with power, you see where it goes. And again, my opinion, I feel like she's projecting. But also she's such a raging narcissist, she doesn't see that she's doing this because she is above questioning. She is above any of this stuff, right? It's her way or the highway. She's the God in this God complex, right? Period.
For example, you'll say things, or you'll hear people who live like this say things like, it's fine that they're lying about, fill in the blank. Well, I was hurt. Or they shouldn't have said that to me. Or I feel this need to be kind, and so therefore I'll be dishonest. Or if I tell them the truth, they'll be offended. Or it's okay that she's screaming at her kids. It's just because she's tired. Or her kids made her do that. Or I did that because you, fill in the blank. Or you'll say things that say, adulating stuff that says, you owe me. Or I deserve this. You will feel the need or the right to be resentful, mad, tell people to take this, or you'll say this isn't fair, or this is how it should be.
Again, I could go on and on about just how she's describing her and Ruby in this, but also what comes to my mind with this is, you know, Sherry Frankie, who wrote the book, her experience of surviving Ruby, basically, and Jodi, I guess you could say. You know, when she was talking about Ruby bringing Jodi into the home and into the mix and all this type of stuff, and Sherry goes and she does the research, and she's like, this woman's basically off a rocker. Are you crazy, Mom? Couldn't tell Ruby anything. And this is just what they're talking about here, where it's just like, I'm right, this, that, the other. No willingness to see anything. And even when you look back on, if you watched it, Ruby's sentencing, where she went in with that massive speech prepared, right? Of the whole, you know, I want to thank the police officers and this and that. She still is so lost, or was still lost in being Ruby and being whatever, that it was like impenetrable force field of learning the true lesson from it. You know, it's like she still was taking ownership of it in a narcissistic way and trying to control the narrative by being like, you know, I'll treat this like an acceptance speech. I'm so grateful, kind of a thing, right? And so who knows what she's like now. I mean, from what we've seen, Kevin basically told the prison, hey, I don't want her writing me anymore. She's still kind of like a little whatever. Jodi's over here talking about, I'm already ready to get out. You know, my lawyer's this, my lawyer's that. They don't think they did anything wrong because this is them. This is how they think. They're doing these things while actively destroying people and children's lives. You know what I'm saying? So this is their real version. And you're not going to convince them otherwise.
If you as the adult will be consistent and not interrupt that pattern of choice and consequence or outcome for your child, they will learn to live in the reality or the truth, which that outcome, that natural outcome or implied outcome, is the best teacher they can ever have. If you'll let them have that.
But here's the thing, they never let them have that because they controlled the outcome. They didn't want them to learn a normal lesson because, like I said, they always moved the measuring stick, the goalpost. They always wanted it to serve whatever belief or whatever it was they were trying to do. I mean Jodi and Ruby. And so just like this right here where it's like, yeah, but you're not even willing to do that yourself. If you don't like the outcome, then you go manipulate. If you don't like what one of your clients said, well, then you turn the whole group against them. Right? So again, it's this like never ending thing. But again, at a certain point, people are listening to this like, yeah, Jodi, she really knows her stuff. I mean, I can't believe she only got 10 books. I'm surprised she's not on the bestseller.
It's the best thing that could ever happen to them is just let them choose and let them have outcomes. If you cloud or eliminate or quote unquote save or quote unquote jump in the way of the outcomes of your child's choices or an adult's choices, they will not have access to the reality or truth of the choice and outcome they just made.
Again, do I even need to say it? Look at how much she did this, but also look at how she would create the narrative choices. Just look at Kevin and Ruby, where Jodi is going to Ruby and telling her this is how you need to handle your man, basically. Ruby is throttling Kevin down to all the way to, you need to move out of the house and keep paying the bills and sign everything over to me. So the level of manipulation that they're utilizing while sitting here and teaching these lessons is mind-boggling. And Sherry brings this up in her book where she's like, Mom and Jodi are living in the same bedroom but filming in different locations in the house to make their viewers think that they're not around each other. All the while, the family's falling apart, people aren't talking to Jodi anymore, like all this crazy stuff's going on, but they're selling this BS.
So I said to my 10-year-old, hey, you need to close the door because the cat's going to get out. And they say that they will. Now remember, they're 10. And sure enough, we come home and the cat is gone. And we never see the cat again. Now that is a very reasonable, natural outcome for my 10-year-old to learn, especially if he loved the cat, that because he did not shut the door, the cat got out.
Okay, now again, this example that she's using watered down, I mean, first of all, how horrible, right? If this is true. Yeah, he's 10. He didn't leave the door open. I mean, again, I don't know the situation of the house or whatever, but I just get the vibe that she's the type of person that would enjoy this, that would enjoy seeing the cat was gone forever and that she could teach a lesson. Like, she's not thinking of the big picture of, is the cat okay? Now your kid's upset. Now they have like this, what a horrible lesson to learn at age 10 of, oh my God, I left the door open, the cat left. Imagine if they saw it on the road dead, right? Now I get at the end of the day, it's like, okay, yeah, the kid needs to learn a lesson, but is there another way we could accomplish this, right? It's like you're the parent, okay? But it's like, and then also too, this is the other thought that I have on people like Jodi. I could see her going back and opening the door and gaslighting the kid into thinking that he left the door open just to teach the lesson. That's what I'm talking about, and that's what's so frustrating with this. Now, these are the clips that I picked out for this one right here. This was a much longer episode in general, and honestly just kept going on like this, and I was like, I can't. It literally makes me want to come out of my skin. But I also am so fascinated by what we've seen in the case to go back and listen to these podcast episodes. Now, if you follow me, you'll know I did one semi-recently. It was like some of the last episodes they did. It was like Ruby and Jodi. And I mean, y'all, it was so cringy. This one's cringy, but more infuriating than anything. Because again, now that we know what we know she didn't practice any of this stuff, right? At all. If anything, it was opposite. So I mean, I really look at Connections as an absolute narcissistic grift on her part, okay? Like, that's just how I view this. And it just, again, to see somebody who's now turning on a dime, talking about, I want to get out of prison, hasn't even served, half the sentence or whatever. It's potentially 4 to 30 years, and these are heinous crimes. I can't imagine that somebody would let her out. Now she wants to do an appeal. Well, she pled out, so that's not the process, right? But she's going to try it anyways. But that lets you know how doubled down on it she is, okay? This isn't like the regular, you're going to go to trial, and then you're going to get your appeal. Like, that's just what it is. It's not that. So, to know that she's not practicing what she preaches. I feel like this is what I would love. You know how like in, I think Silence of the Lambs, where he was like, sometimes if I'm bad, they'll put the TV outside of my cell and put it on religious shows. I feel like they should, outside of Ruby and Jodi's thing, play the podcast nonstop. Right? The only time you take a break is to bring Sarah Boone in or clutch your pearls, Nancy Brophy. And if you do bring Sarah Boone and Nancy Brophy in, like give them like a ton of caffeine first, and like you have to spend the week every weekend. So Friday nights at 8 o'clock to Monday morning at 8 o'clock, they have to room with Nancy Brophy or Sarah Boone, and in between that, they have to listen to their podcast. Done. They'll be rehabilitated. Honey, you'll see them. They'll fall in line real quick. Wouldn't we all, right? Be like, hallelujah, I'm fixed. Let me on out of here now. Okay, I've redeemed myself. So anyways, that's going to be all that we do here. So let me know what you think down in the comment section. I do appreciate if you're still watching. If you are still watching, if you could drop some sofas off for myself, Roscoe and Spirit, Bo and Luke, and the rest of the sofa squad. Y'all come on around now, good lord. Until we all make it down to the comment section to hang out on the sofa and talk about this and all the other crazy cases we do talk about here at the Sofa Squad. I'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. And then like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Ross on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.